First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. This is episode 78. Today is Thursday, November 16th. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, joined by Camila Ortiz. Hey Camila.
Hello, Jeff.
Meteorologist Katie Suniga. Hey Katie.
Good morning.
And Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. Hey Mark.
Good morning, Jeff.
All right, guys, it's been kind of a wet first half of the month of November. We're going to go through some of those numbers, and we're also going to reflect on fall so far. Meteorological fall, believe it or not, is almost over. September, October, November is considered meteorological fall. We're also going to talk about the upcoming weather pattern. It really does look like things are drying out, and we're entering more of what we would typically see late fall into winter in an El Nino phase. So we'll kind of go over that. And we're going to reflect on how the snowpack is playing out right now and what, the short to mid-range models are showing for the Cascades. So there is some snow coming this weekend. We'll talk about that. Big picture, any first alert weather days or any big concerns that we have, we're going to highlight that. And then, of course, Mark just celebrated 30 years on television. So we're going to look at some really awesome photos of Mark when he was young.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that.
Baby Mark.
We'll also talk about just, how things have changed because if you read Mark's blog this week, things have really changed in television over the past 3 decades. So it'll be fun to kind of chat about that. But let's go over some of these November rainfall numbers.
Yes.
What's funny is this morning I posted the forecast. There are 2 out of 7 days in our 7-day that have a chance of rain or at least a high confidence in some showers.
That's it. Wow.
And there was a viewer that said, man, it's been so dry lately, but I think we tend to get short-term memory loss about what has happened lately. Katie, let's go over some of these rainfall numbers. We have some cities listed for both Southwest Washington and Northwest Oregon.
Yeah. So in Vancouver right now, the average for the month is 5.5, so 5.51. And so far in Vancouver, we have 4.25. Camas about 5.82. Kelso almost 5.5, 5.4. Richfield 4.25. Battleground close to 6.5, so 6.41. And then Long Beach 8.61. So those are some.
Can I pause right there? When I pulled up that Long Beach number, I was like, how the heck has Long Beach picked up like 3 inches more than Astoria, which is right across the Columbia? And I think it was that day that we had that thunderstorm developing. Remember we were talking about the possibility of funnel clouds that one day, and early in that morning there was a special weather statement, special marine statement, where they had basically issued a severe thunderstorm warning over the Pacific Ocean. A thunderstorm was kind of brushing across the coastline. I think that dropped a lot of rain on Long Beach that morning.
But Jeff, you made this graphic. I mean, the previous graphic I just showed with the Washington numbers. Where's Sheep Canyon or Swift Creek?
That's the one that's
Mark's
the
favorite.
one.
That's what I forgot this morning.
Yeah.
It's probably like 15 inches or so because I know they had like 8 inches in a few days. But that's fine. We can leave Sheep Canyon for next time.
All right, fair enough.
It's all yours, Katie.
All right. So now we're looking at those Portland numbers. So if you haven't been watching us on air, because we've been beating this in for like the last 2 weeks, 5.45.
Just
so almost
beating it in.
Beating it in. We talk about it every day, how much rain we have in November, second wettest month of the year. In Portland, we are just barely off from that by about an inch. So we're at 4.5, so just 1 inch away from that average. Salem is 4.3, Astoria 5.75, Bonneville Dam 8.75, almost 7 at Detroit, and then just a little more than 5 inches in Newport. Pretty close there, but 1 inch, not even, just barely made halfway through the month.
Pretty wet.
There are like 3 weather stations up near Detroit Lake, and I think 2 out of 3 actually have recorded over 7 inches for what it's worth. So typical western-facing mountain slopes pick up a lot of rain.
Only 2 days at the airport this month that we didn't have any measurable rain out of the, what day is it today? The 15th, 16th? I can't remember.
16th, so 15 days so far. We're halfway through.
15 days halfway through, and only 2 of them have not had any rain.
2 consecutive dry days, folks.
I think
2.
maybe why people think it's been more dry than it's actually been, because a lot of that rainfall happened while we were sleeping, right? A lot of those overnight events. I don't know.
Point.
That's just what I'm
That's right.
wondering, if that's maybe what people are thinking.
You must be running outside or cycling outside. Do you do that? Is
Yeah.
that something you do?
I mean, cycling in the rain is not as enjoyable to me as running is, because you're just getting splashed in the face with water. I mean, even with fenders on, they can only do so much. So I prefer running in the rain. I think it's actually peaceful to run in the rain. But yeah, you just have to have the right gear, Jeff.
All right. Mark, you made a pretty graphic here, actually 2.
I did.
Reflecting on fall so far.
Yeah, it just shows the rain. September was about average for rain, but October 2.5 inches above normal in Portland. And so far, November, 2.5 inches above normal. We'll see how that plays out at the end. But so it's a wet fall, wetter than normal. I mean, not excessive. It's not like record breaking. But, I mean, when we look back at this fall, assuming nothing dramatic happens in the next 15 days, I don't think there'll be anything to write home about, as they used to say. Yeah, look at the temps. One more graphic here, the temps. So it's interesting that PDX was a little bit above normal in September. Oh, by the way, when I say fall here, what you're seeing, if you're not watching, if you listen like I do in the car to this podcast, meteorological fall is September, October, and November. So we've only got 2 weeks left in meteorological fall. And September was a little above average in Portland temperature-wise, but it's funny, when you look at all the Oregon climate zones, it was actually below average by a degree or so. So Portland ran warmer than most stations around it for whatever reason. I know we probably had a lot of cloudy, warm nights. But anyway, so September was about average, but October, November have been above average. And so far, the anomaly for November is the furthest above average. No, it's furthest time. Farthest. No, it's the furthest above. I hate those words. Way to be furthest above average, right?
Yeah.
How about most above average warm? How about just warmest compared to normal?
There you go.
Good Lord. Try that on TV, folks.
Oh, man. That's the worst. When you start second guessing yourself on television and then you start saying it out loud, what you're thinking, and then you dig yourself in a hole. Yeah, Mark just did that. At least it's on a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that every day. It seems to be working, though.
We enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So fall is a little warm, but as of now, I mean, unless something, we're pretty confident that nothing is going to dramatically change here in the next 2 weeks. I don't think we're going to look back at fall 2023 and say, oh my gosh, it was a, hot, cold, warm, wet. I don't think it's going to really stick out that much. A little warmer than average, which is, kind of the trend, as you probably heard. Yeah.
So it'll be forgettable. A forgettable fall.
Right.
Well, we've had one first alert weather day, and we're probably not going to be declaring any anytime soon. And that was for the possibility of funnel clouds. That ended up being a pretty weak sauce type of day.
Yeah.
Not many thunderstorms.
Right.
So let's talk about this upper level weather pattern. I mean, we talk about split flow pattern where the jet stream kind of drives up to the north of the Pacific Northwest and oftentimes to the south and leaves us in kind of a mundane, mellow weather pattern. It really feels like we're entering something like that.
Look at Friday. I mean, the pattern now is about the same. We got that upper level low off the California coast. It's kind of torturing those forecasters down there, just kind of throwing rain over there at times. But those are Californians. They'll be fine. But you look at this upper level map, folks, we're looking at I just randomly chose the GEM model, the Canadian model, just for fun, because, everybody gets tired of the Euro because it's, right so often. But why are you snickering?
I'm not snickering.
It's like choosing a favorite child. Are you allowed to do that?
Well, we've got every once in a while you have to pat the other child on the head here. So we're going to give the Canadians some love here.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at, folks, if you can't see, we're just looking at the upper level map over the North American, continental areas. And this is for Friday morning. So we're recording this on Thursday morning. You may be watching this possibly on Friday, if you're just clicking from your desk at work. And you can see the main jet stream probably up in the greenish area up there. That technically the jet stream is up at the 300 millibar or 250 millibar level. We're looking at the 500 millibar, which is, Camila, how high is that?
18,000 feet.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Good job. I don't think I even remember that.
I literally had to specify last night. That's the only reason I had it in my brain.
Camila asked me, she goes, wait, it's 500 and I think you were like 15 or whatever you said. And I go, close, it's 18.
Yeah.
But it
So
changes
about
depending
Yes.
depending on the time of year.
Right.
Yep. Good point. It does. Yeah.
But it's around 18,000 most of the
Yeah.
time, somewhere there. But anyway, so you see the main flow up north, and we have a cutoff low, kind of a splitty pattern. I mean, that doesn't actually look that splitty. So that's Friday. And anybody jump in case you have comments here. I'm going to go through the next week. Actually, no. I'm going to go through 10 days.
Whoa.
You ready for that? So that is Friday. So tomorrow morning, which map is which? Wrong one. That one. That's Sunday morning. And you do see a trough, a little dashed line. Little trough, kind of, let's say it dents the ridge a bit. That's over the West Coast. That's on Saturday night, Sunday. So that we get the shower, some rain.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's
rain.
what's going to steady rain, mountain snow, tapering off Sunday. All right, keep going, Mark.
Okay. Well, Jeff has the latest info since we all just woke up. So sometimes you have something that's different from last night. Yeah. I look great. So then
Guys,
that's Sunday.
I put my coffee in an actual coffee cup this time. So improvements.
And I brushed my teeth because I just slammed that coffee down so I could feel fresh.
Nice.
I just finished mine and I brushed my hair.
So that's Sunday. And then we go to, okay, here we go. So Tuesday, now there's a little kind of a change, not so much for us, but here's Tuesday. And you see the ridging is strengthened over us on Tuesday. I mean, that's a very clear pattern of like, okay, it's probably dry here. So Monday, Tuesday, dry. You do see a little plunge of cold air for the first time this season down into the Midwest, maybe just leading into Thanksgiving.
Question.
That's what they just love to see. Yes. Maybe an answer.
When will we start to hear polar vortex in headlines?
Buzzword.
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Term of the week.
Next week.
Next week?
No, because it is actually, this model doesn't, let's see, let me go to the next one. There's a reason. I think, I skipped the good stuff. This is Tuesday. If we go to, I skipped the good stuff because that little thing here, okay, you can see my little pointer, right? Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pointing at kind of the Hudson's Bay area. Some models have far more of this blue coming south, kind of really swinging into the Midwest. It's kind of a chunk of like a polar vortex disruption. I saw it on one Judah Cohen, a guy that writes like long form climate stuff. And I just saw his Twitter post yesterday. And he said it's, the first kind of disruption, not really, so it's almost like a little chunk of the polar vortex does come south. And some models, I've noticed the GFS at times has been pushing this farther west towards us.
Yes.
Jeff, you probably noticed that, right? Okay.
Yes, I have. Yeah. Why do you think I look at the GFS? Is that a dig?
No. Well, because we both look at everything, so I know you probably saw it. Yeah. So I saw that. Speaking of a dig, so it has it digging more over the Rockies, which would give us a little cooler pattern for us, and also even stronger offshore flow, kind of a drive-by sort of thing. So I keep watching for that, but there doesn't seem to be any significant support for it digging much farther west. And the Canadian is the most boring model probably here in that. We go all the way to Saturday after Black Friday. So this is 2 days after Thanksgiving. Look at that. The ridge is still there.
Wow.
So that says that's 10 days out. And that just says a pretty boring pattern. All models have some variation of this setup. Yeah. So, wow.
So, again, for those folks that are just listening as opposed to watching the graphics that we're showing here, Mark is showcasing a ridge or a blocking pattern that seems to be pretty persistent for the next 7 to 10 days. Sometimes it flattens out a little bit, like it will this weekend. It'll bring us a quick shot of rain and mountain snow Saturday, mainly Saturday afternoon into Sunday. But I mean, you're bringing up the 15 to 16 day precipitation anomaly. So the outlook for the next 2 weeks or so is pretty bleak for the Pacific Northwest, especially for mountain snowpack. Bonnie Silkman asked me the other day, what are you thinking about the possibility of Thanksgiving skiing or snowboarding or shortly after? And I didn't feel too good about it. Let's just say.
Yeah.
And in my next set of graphics, we can get into what that could mean, as we go into December. That's my teaser for a few moments from now. Yeah. So, and this is the Euro, same thing. Next 10 days, the 10 day. Oh no, that's the next 15 days. Yeah, 360 hours. So same thing. Very drier than normal. Not dry, but drier than normal.
Right.
From really southern BC down at least to northern California. Maybe about average, or some systems might make it into California in this pattern. But as of this exact moment, we're not really seeing the big jet stream hitting California like when we think of El Nino. But you guys, this could be the beginning of the El Nino pattern. Or it could be just by chance we're just in a dryish pattern for November. We don't really know yet.
I have a question. When we were there on Tuesday, it looked like we were going to see some showers on Wednesday. How has that progressed? Because I haven't looked. I worked on a story yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to look at any updated maps.
For us or
models.
for California?
For us.
It's
Jeff?
So it looks like the ridge is going to be pretty strong. There are more than enough ensemble members hinting at light precipitation. I think what's going to happen is the ridge is going to barely flatten out. There's probably going to be a disturbance that comes through and it brings us that drippy stuff, maybe a few showers. Nothing too steady, not a significant shot of rain and mountain snow. But I think around Thanksgiving, we're probably going to deal with a few showers and probably cloudier skies. That's how I anticipate things.
Just kind of gray.
That's what I was
basically.
thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking Thanksgiving to me just looks like, I mean, there's nothing. I looked at the wind. The wind is just like calm. There's not much of anything going on Thanksgiving, maybe in Black Friday. Really just that. Actually, that's one thing I don't like about the weather this time of the year, when it's just like nothing happens. It's just grayish and But good for regular folks. Their lives continue unaffected, I suppose, by weather.
Yeah.
Mark, real quick, can we go back to the precipitation outlook, the anomaly? Just one of those maps. If you're watching here, I know that looks super bleak. It shows like negative values. We have to remember this is a really wet time of year. So what this forecast model or the ensembles are doing is they're showing this 15-day period, and they're comparing it to what is a typical amount of precipitation that we would receive in that 15-day period. And it's showing the departure from that normal value. So you can see that California may actually see an uptick or a more wet than normal like two-week period there, as opposed to up to the Northwest. We're going to see a much drier period for this time of year.
Yeah, like Astoria, it shows 3 inches lower than normal. Well, let's just pretend Astoria gets 5 inches of rain in 2 weeks, typically this time of the year. That means they're only going to get 2 inches instead of 5 inches.
Yeah, and like the bottom line is, it doesn't mean that we're going to be completely dry. We're just going to probably have less frequent rain events coming through.
On this one, just not to belabor this, but I did notice today, this is an interesting graphic we use. It's called the 24-hour QPF, because it would include snow, of course, if there's snow. But in this case, it's all rain. But just 24-hour buckets of rainfall from all 51 European ensemble members. And this goes, get out of here. Not you guys, the graphic. Okay. This goes all the way through the next 2 weeks, left or right. And as you approach, a change, for example, the wet weather this weekend, it kind of cleans up as all the ensemble members gradually come in line, right? Because they get better as you get closer in time. And you can see this period of rain this weekend. I noticed this is kind of, let's say, cleaning up in here for next week. This is, all right here. Let me go closer again. Right in here is Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. Boy, this is a lot of dry weather in this area, next week. Again, here's the Wednesday stuff, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, like Jeff said. There's a lot of ensemble members that are either dry or just don't have much precip. So I think the main point here is, after this weekend, there's not all that much rain for probably a week. I mean, there'll be some rain, but through the whole Thanksgiving week, very, very quiet. Yeah. And those are my thoughts. Oh, temps here. What about temps? What do you have? Perfect. Jeff, you sent these in today.
These are the most updated ensembles. Yeah. What's funny is I think like the overnight GFS ensemble run, I think it had this is like a 14-day period or so, and it had 8 of the members. Okay, this is a little bit different. I pulled in some of the updated ones, but it had 49 listed 10 times for highs. I mean, it is very consistent. Nothing big. No big changes are expected in the temperature department.
Yeah, this is the one you sent me. This is the 6Z. Yeah, it's
So just slightly cooler, but nothing extreme.
I saw a social media post just somewhere else. I don't remember where, but
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it said, somebody said, dramatically cooler, or the big cool down, winter-like temps coming up for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, well, okay, the high might be 48 instead of 52. Yeah. So there you go.
I saw that too. I thought the same thing.
We all did. Yeah. I'm having graphics issues here, so talk amongst yourselves.
Well, you know what I like though about that? I don't mind it being a little cooler, because I enjoy bundling up. I like that there's nothing major spikes or drops. I kind of like it when it's almost like your body can just kind of acclimate to its temperature, and you go outside and it's not like all of a sudden you can't breathe because it's so cold, or you're, ripping off your sweatshirts and because all of a sudden you're so hot, even though it's only 62, because your body's used to those upper 40s, low 50s. So I like that kind of like consistent, a degree or two each day, no major spikes.
It's easy living. Yeah.
It is.
Yep, that's why the weather appears so great.
So I think you folks know, anybody that's an avid weather geek or just is interested in weather, you probably already know this, but we don't see any of the big four things that we're always watching for this time of the year, probably through Thanksgiving weekend. Lowland snow, no Arctic blast, no valley windstorm, no widespread flooding. Ooh, you guys, since our last podcast, what was it, last Saturday or Sunday? The Euro was showing a big storm coming across Oregon on Monday, but that's not happening.
Yeah.
That was exciting briefly.
Which I know these models go out, right, 10 plus days, but the people that are posting that on social media and saying,
that's the worst.
Like, why? Can we not do that? I don't see very many like meteorologists, who are like working, whatever. I think it's a lot of like hobby people maybe that are doing that, but let's not do that.
It's especially when it's only one member of the model of the ensembles, and all the others show it being normal.
I love that Camila is getting irritated by that, though. That is like
good
prime. You are entering Weather Geekville here. Where you just get irritated by those folks that are like, oh man, got to post the 60 Euro 10 days out, which is showing a bomb cyclone. Oh, it's just it's clickbait. Classic. Clickbait.
Totally.
So
it's we don't really know what's happening more than like 4 or 5 days out. Let's be honest.
Right. I think we should get into the mountain snow conditions, the current state of the snowpack, what we're looking at this weekend. I pulled a graphic here, a couple of graphics. This was about 8 o'clock this morning from ski board, socked in by the clouds. Most of the snow is melted away at 5,000 feet, and then I had the opportunity during one of my so I'm training to become a pilot, and I was this was my last flight for a little bit because my wife is getting ready to have our first child, and so I got to fly by Mount Hood, and I had a great view on Tuesday of all the volcanoes around.
Amazing.
And I thought that this would give us a really good idea of what the snowpack looks like around Mount Hood. So a lot of green, I'll say, down in the foothills, and some decent snow up high, but the snow forecast doesn't look too bad for the weekend, but we should go over how things are going so far. Camilla, I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, so this is showing, I'm assuming this is percent of normal, right? Snowpack for this time of year. Like it. And a lot of the regions here are, not in great shape. I'm seeing a lot of 30-some percents, 40-some percents. The only place that's doing well is the Lake County area, which is above 100%. But otherwise, we're a little bit behind what would be considered normal snowpack for this time of year.
And I should point out, it's so early in the season. Usually I don't even use a map like this till mid-December at the earliest, just because I bet averages for some of these locations are like 3 inches on the ground. And if there's 0, it's like, oh my gosh, it's way below average. So one storm would make these go way up. So we use these with caution, as I guess we would say, right?
Yeah, it's early.
What is this graphic?
A lot can change.
Yeah. But with that pattern coming up, with this pattern coming up, there ain't much snow. Oop, I can't say ain't, right?
You know what? This
Bonnie,
is
cover your ears.
I think this is last night's run, because I sent you an updated run, but it's all right.
Yeah.
This is actually one of those updated runs for kind of a zoomed-in version of Mount Hood here. And this is going to be a pretty decent cold front that comes through. It'll be a quick mover, though. If it was a slower one, I think we would end up seeing quite a bit more snow. But I think initially when the precipitation arrives to the Cascades, the snow level will probably be around 5,000 feet. And then Saturday night into Sunday, it should dip down to about 2,000 to 3,000 feet. So the bulk of the snow should occur near and above 4,500 feet. I'm just kind of estimating. We'll pick up about 6 to 10 inches of snow, and then a trace in the foothills down to maybe 2,000 to 2,500 feet, and up to 5 inches, I think, around government camp. It'll be nice to see some white stuff back on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. So then this is interesting because a lot of folks are wondering, right, if El Nino is already impacting our weather patterns and impacting how much snow we can see in the Cascades. But El Nino usually doesn't present itself right until the winter months, like January, December, for us here in the Pacific Northwest. But, you know, it's hard to say, but it's interesting. This graphic is basically showing us November snow at government camp, specifically during El Nino winters. So those are the only years you're seeing here. And it's really all over the place. You'll see some years where we don't get any snow, like 2002, 2003, or very little snow. And then some years like 2010, 2007, where we see a lot. Well above average, and that long-term November average is, I'm assuming this is in inches, right?
Right. Yeah, you're right. It
just
doesn't
above,
say that, does it? 30 inches.
Well, it's okay. It's all right. Just about, I kind of figured feet would be pretty dramatic for our climate.
It would be.
The long-term November average is just over 30 inches.
I do notice, though, real quick, if you count how many years we have on there, is there 11 that are below, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are above. So if you look at that, it's trends a little below than it does above.
It is. In fact, I checked. The average is 31 inches there. I guess I could have given you that fact there, Camilla. But 31 inches is the long-term November average. Oh, for any year, not just El Nino years. All right.
Oh, that's good specified. Yeah. Okay.
So that's 31 inches. For these years, it's 28 inches. I mean, slightly lower. But
so it does slightly lower it, yeah.
Very slightly. But you know what I did do is I looked. You know me. I looked through the real stinker years, 72. Wait a minute, 72? That was when we had like one of the biggest cold blasts ever in December. Why does that? No, it was. Is that possible?
Well, that was December. This is November.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you're making a good point. Just because we have a bad or a good November doesn't mean we're going to have a bad or a good December.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, well, we're talking November here, folks. Speaking of 30 years. Okay, so 1, 2. So I took the 9 years, 72, 73, 76, 77. Folks, we're looking at the ones that were real stinkers in November where not much happened. 97, 98, 02, 03, 04, 05. 14, 15, 15, 16, and 18, 19. So I took those 9 years and I looked and I was like, okay, so what happened in December, right? So only three of those continue to be really bad in December with well below normal snowpack. Most of those had 2 feet or less in December. But 6 of those 9 were fine, near normal. 50 inches is normal in December. 6 of the 9 had 35 inches or more in December. So there's no reason to think necessarily that this is like, oh my gosh, it's the beginning of something terrible. I mean, it might be, but we don't know. So the point is, do not lose hope. Do not freak out until about, Christmas break. If we have little snow through Christmas break, then that's obviously a problem. But I just, we love parsing data here. And so I thought that was kind of interesting info.
So that is the probably not looking good for November Thanksgiving ski.
Yeah, there's not going to be, unless some ski area unless something big happens on Sunday. Ski areas would love to. I've seen meadows ski on 11 inches where they just have like their little magic carpet and they truck in some snow off the parking lot and have a few inches. But there's not going to be any real skiing on Thanksgiving weekend. I know Ski Bowl, though. Remember, they have that snowmaking semi that's parked there where they make the snow inside the cold semi, and they can do. They plan to open their sledding. What's it called? Not sledding. Tubing. Yeah, they're gonna have their tubing open. They since they have that semi, they can make the snow even when it's 60 degrees. They just sit there and pump out the snow like right now into a big pile. They spread it out, and so they're scheduled to open, I think, on Black Friday for tubing up at Ski Bowl. So they will be open for that regardless.
Cool.
So that's kind of neat. What's next, Jeff? I forget.
You know what's next? I think
what everyone's been waiting for.
Yeah. Mark Nelson has been on TV for 30 years as of this week.
Incredible.
I think for like a really in-depth recap, you should definitely head over to his blog. But we thought it would be fun to kind of talk about how things have gone over this past 30 years, how things have changed, maybe some of the highlights, Mark. Some of the best pictures, which you're showing here. That's one of the reasons why you should tune into the podcast on our website, is you get to see things like this. Mark has not changed in 30 years, folks.
Oh, yes, I have. Come on.
You went from looking 12 to looking like 25.
Right.
Oh, gosh, I love you.
Exactly.
Tell me more, folks.
Mark,
this gives me a hard time about looking young, and you look at this.
Tell us when you started. What was the first year? Tell us which stations you were at over the years.
Yeah, I'll make it quick.
Been at the same station. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was actually this was at Cairo TV in Seattle, but I was not on the air. It was just an internship. This is what I looked like my senior year in college. Just a scared kid.
Like your son.
I was very, yeah. Actually, my son looks kind of like this, which is interesting. I've had people say that.
Oh my gosh.
That was my senior year. And then, so I started at, I worked 2 years for a private forecasting company, forecasting winds in the gorge, when there was no internet, which we can get into the technology in a second. But then that company started falling apart. The boss came to me one day and he said, how much? And he goes, put his hands behind his head. He goes, how much of next month's paycheck do you really need? And I'm thinking, all of it that I worked for. And the company, there were just, let's just say there were financial issues. And I even got a call from the Secret Service, a voicemail one time, right after I left that place. Because the Secret Service, at least back then, they covered credit card fraud. So when the Secret Service calls, when an agent calls you from the Secret Service, I figure you should return that call, right? And I told them everything I knew, which was some weird stuff. So anyway, the company was kind of falling apart. And so Coin TV had 2 openings and I started working there. They hired me. They took a big chance. I worked there for 7 years from 93 to 2000. I loved it. Had great memories there. Great people. At one time, we were the #1 station. We even moved the weather center for 1 year over to OMSI, the OMSI Weather Lab. And that was quite an experience working in a science museum. I mean, like our GM of the station came over and he kind of toured and he's funny. He goes, I suppose you kind of meet a higher class of people over here at a science museum than at a TV station. And I go, yeah, you're right. I mean, just, a different mindset. TV at a TV station, we're all working hard. We're smart people, but it's different. I was hanging around science people. So that was kind of neat. And then we used to produce it used to be Fox 49 News at 10 because the Fox station was 49 here through the late 80s, early to 2002. And they said, hey, we're going to build our own TV station out in Beaverton. And at that point, then I went to here's Mark in 2000, the brand new weather center in 2000.
Woo.
Look at those monitors.
Yeah, look at those little monitors and look at the frosted tips in the hair.
Yeah, I thought that was a light reflection first time I saw that. I did not realize that you did that to your hair.
That was literally, you went to a salon and did that.
Well, I think, didn't some people do that back then?
Oh, I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was like a boy band kind of thing.
Yeah, and so then
NSYNC was big back then.
NSYNC. Well, I was 31, and my boss goes, he's kind of an older, more typical kind of old style news guy. And he goes, hey, the hair, you're probably getting a little old for that. Maybe you should lose that. That's the end of that.
By the way, where was this weather center? Is this like in the same spot that it is in our station now?
No, actually, this would have been very close to where the Christmas tree is right now, to the right of the Christmas tree. The news studio was in that studio there, and the weather was right there because people would walk in from our newsroom right in. We were right around the corner from the newsroom.
Was the main studio that time? Okay,
it was. Studio A was used they would drive cars in and do commercials and stuff, and that was just a big wide open studio where we are now. 23 years ago, folks. Whew.
Wow.
That's all I have for pictures, but the big deal is the technology, folks. When we started forecasting in 91, and then when I started in TV in 93, there was really no internet. Yes, there was. Sometimes we would use modems to dial up some stuff, like some sort of info, like, oh, ODOT has put a sensor and you can dial it up, so stuff like that. But I mean, maps come across a printer, you hear the and you hang them all on the wall. You come in and you look at the wall to see what's going on with the maps. Nothing was on computer. You got observations every hour from probably, 15 stations in Oregon, and that was it. I mean, that's all you had. You didn't have all this data up in the mountains that was easily available. You couldn't look at road weather sensors, none of that. So in a way, it was easier. I mean, I think I was describing to you, Camila, last night that, you got the MRF model, which was the early version of the GFS. Once per day, you got like the 144, the 168, and the 192 hour forecast, and that was it. So what are you going to do? Do something different than what it shows? No, you pretty much just followed it, unless it was crazy.
Yeah.
Were you licking your chops like you do when the Euro 0Z comes out in the evening?
Oh, yeah. And then I even remember somebody, I had a friend, Nancy Steffen, worked over at BPA, and her husband worked with me, and he goes, hey, the European model is showing up big Arctic blast. And so she even faxed me the maps from the European, which we didn't have access to, so I could look at this Arctic blast. Just wait. I remember having that fax printout of like the 7-day Euro, like, oh. So that's how it was back then. It was kind of simpler. I mean, it's simpler in that, like I said, we didn't have all the data. We didn't have to look over as much data. And of course, our forecasts were not nearly as good as now. If we had a pattern coming up that was, rainy, westerly flow. We just say rain at times. We didn't try to say, what's today? Today's Thursday. We didn't try to say rain tapering off Sunday afternoon. We would just say scattered showers Sunday. We just didn't have that level of skill. No radar. Well, there was an old 1957 radar in Portland. We didn't really use it on TV. We really couldn't see what was going on very well in the Pacific Northwest because
So pretty
the
much what
radars weren't
Central Oregon
installed.
has right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Even worse, Katie. I mean, thunderstorms, you could just barely see. Yeah, we could kind of see thunderstorms, but the quality was terrible. What else was really bad? The internet didn't really start showing up, regularly in the Weather Center till like 97, 98, I think. We all used the same computer for our email. How weird is that? No logins, no logouts. Everybody just hopped on.
Wow.
Strange. You could see what the last person was looking at, which there wasn't much to look at back then.
You told me you were hand drawing the jet stream too.
That's right. It's not on there.
He still does.
Yeah.
Well,
Those graphics
true,
you just
kind
saw.
of.
Yeah. No, 500 millibar map. You guys, we had this like tablet where you would draw, and we would take the black and white 500 millibar map. And my coworker Jim Little, he was here forever in the 80s and 90s, chief meteorologist at Coin and KGW. But he had made the stereographic or whatever projection match the map on the graphic, and we would draw each line, just the current one. You wouldn't draw several, but you would draw each line, and then you had a 500 millibar map. And we were really excited in the mid 90s when the little lines would kind of move.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. Just wild.
Yeah.
How things have changed. Man.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And TV was different. We do 2 shows a day or 3 shows a day max. Right here, and when we started in 2000, we were doing a 10 o'clock show. I think it was a half hour at 10. Oh no, there was a half hour at 5 p.m. as well. Then they dumped the 5 and we did 1 hour at 10. I don't even know what we did all day. There was no social media.
That's
hour
what I
10.
was going to ask. Like, you have less shows, but you also don't have like Twitter to scroll through. So what were you doing? Like playing dominoes?
I do remember the crew playing, like they had like a little Nerf or some sort of basketball thing within this studio on the other side. They'd come in for like an hour and play each afternoon. And somehow we were making a lot of money. So that shows you how much things have changed.
Jeff, Katie, we all got in at the wrong time, you know?
I know.
Well, there were so many more people in the studio operating cameras, Mark, and now they're
That's
all
right.
Floor directors.
now they're all
and-
automated. They're machines. They're moving on their own, and man, I can't imagine like thinking back to 30 years ago and just what it looks, how much different it looks compared to today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, it was simpler for sure. But I remember each time me, I'm the real geek. And each time new tools would come out over these last 30 years, it's like, ooh, now we can draw like, oh, I remember I was mad because we were going to have to draw maps and stuff with the mouse. We got rid of the pen. I used the pen for lots of graphics for drawing. I'm like, how are we ever going to like hold our left finger down and draw all these things with a mouse?
And then the mouse became wireless, and you were probably like, oh my gosh, everything's changing.
How does it transmit? I don't understand. Yeah.
I think I
Good
speak
stuff.
for everybody, Mark, not just our weather team, but just a lot of people in the Pacific Northwest. We appreciate everything that you bring us. I mean, it's not just 30 years on TV. You've been a weather nerd for a long time. You've been here you're over 50 years. I hate to talk about your age, but
That's okay.
no,
54.5.
we appreciate all the historical tidbits and, all the analyzation of the numbers, and you're rubbing off on all of us, and we're lucky to work under you. I've learned so much
thanks.
in my nearly 5 years here, and I'm sure Katie and Camila have as well. So congratulations on 30 years, and hopefully you make it to 40. We don't want you to leave anytime soon.
Yes.
Well,
Not to put you on the
things happen.
Yeah.
No, folks, I'm not going anywhere. I'm
Mark,
under
stay
contract.
forever.
I'm not going anywhere. Yeah,
Great.
we're all good.
Yeah. Well,
One of my favorite things. I want to share this real quick.
go
One
ahead.
of my favorite things after I started, and I knew quite a bit about Mark before coming here, but knowing I didn't know his extensive on-the-spot history memory of events, and we were talking about different snows and things coming through, and I remember one year in Salem on my birthday it snowed. He knew the exact day and year that happened. He's like, oh, your birthday must be blah blah blah, and that was this year, without even looking at anything. And I thought back and I was like, holy moly, he is right. That was that birthday, and it was that day, that year. Like, it's just insane, all that knowledge in your brain, Mark. It's inspiring.
Well,
There was
but
a
the problem
Jeopardy
is,
for
when
just
you get-
weather events.
In the
Yeah,
Pacific
I might
Northwest.
do okay.
Mark would
Although
win.
Although as I hit my mid-50s, it's like, wait, more information comes in. Something has to get shoved out the other end. There's too much in there.
It's usually
So
my name.
I do start forgetting. Oh, yeah. It's okay, Susan. It's fine.
Well, Mark, congratulations again, and we're lucky to work under you. I just wanted to make a quick programming note before we wrap up the podcast here. This might be my last podcast for maybe a couple of months or so, depending on when my wife has our baby. She's due pretty much any time. Due date's December 3rd. So if you don't see me in a couple of weeks, Mark and Katie and Camila will, of course, update you. But go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say we can give the viewers all the stats too when we find out length, width.
Yeah.
Well, they don't do width, length, and weight, right?
And I'm waiting for that name because it's being held close to the chest.
So is my mother. So is my mother and my mother-in-law. Yeah,
I'm so excited to find out that name.
They are sitting on pins and needles. And that's what we do here. We talk about numbers, so we'll definitely get you guys those when we can. But thanks for joining us, as always, for the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. We are not going to be recording one next week because of the Thanksgiving holiday, but expect another one in a couple of weeks or so. And we'll talk to you soon.
Weatherman, we can't allow any further delay.